I'm Val Emmons, and this is The Relay. Transitions of care might sound like a technical term, but it's something almost everyone has lived through or will live through in their lifetime. It's what happens when you leave the hospital after surgery or when your parent gets discharged to a nursing home. And for instance, also when your child switches from a specialist back to their pediatrician. It can be any kind of transition from one setting to another. And if that handoff goes well, then you won't even notice it. You'll get clear instructions, your medications will be right, and the next provider knows your history. But if it goes badly, you'll feel it. And maybe you get home with no idea who to call if something goes wrong, or maybe your parents' prescription gets mixed up and they end up back in the ER because no one followed up. And providers also feel it. A hospitalist may be unsure if the primary care provider got the discharge summary, or a pharmacist catches a dangerous medication overlap. And for example, a home health nurse walks in to care for a patient with the wrong doctor's orders. So those breakdowns cause real frustration and they cause wasted time, money, and sometimes they cause real irreversible harm to the patient. And that's what transitions of care is about. It's those fragile moments when the patient, much like a baton during a relay race, is being passed. When the handoff works smoothly, patients feel safe and providers can do their jobs. But when it doesn't, readmissions occur and patients suffer. So that's why in each episode of the relay, we'll be bringing voices from across the healthcare continuum, such as physicians, nurses, case managers, pharmacists, social workers, policy leaders, payers, patients, and their caregivers, because improving transitions takes a team effort. And as you can see, that team is a lot of players on it. That multidisciplinary lens is what makes the relay different from any other healthcare podcast out today. We'll also be digging into new legislation, policy initiatives, new technology like AI that is helping to improve transitions and system changes, shaping how transitions of care are supported at every level. And sometimes we'll talk directly with legislators and their staff to understand how policy gets made and where opportunities may exist to make a real difference. The relay is sponsored by NTOCC, the National Transitions of Care Coalition, and NTOCC is a national coalition of providers, payers, patients, caregivers, and industry leaders working together to improve the safety and quality of care in transitions. I've worked with NTOCC now for almost 15 years, and I'm currently the Vice President of Communications and Government Affairs. But during my time with NTOCC, I've seen way too many of my own family and friends go through such bad transitions. And that's how I know what a difference it makes and why this work is so important. That experience is what drives me to keep pushing this conversation forward, and not to mention the fact that I'm going to be a patient one day that needs all of these services. But transitions of care are a crucial element in one's healthcare journey. Getting care right between handoffs isn't optional, it's essential. Strong transitions save lives, reduce unnecessary costs for payers like Medicare and Medicaid and most insurance companies, but most importantly, they give patients and families the peace of mind they deserve as they move throughout their healthcare journey. So I often say that when a transitions of care goes smoothly, patients don't even notice it. It's only when things fall apart that the gaps become painfully clear. So, welcome to the relay. And in this very first episode, I was joined by Dr. Saswat Kabisatpathy. Dr. Swat, as he prefers to be called, is an executive with the leadership team for the Avant Pharmacy and Wellness Center. He's the Chief Strategy Officer as well as the Director of Strategy and Analytics for the Avant Institute. And prior to this role, Dr. Swat served as a pharmacy clinical services manager for Walmart Health and Wellness. He integrated 14 different pharmacy locations in Charlotte and the surrounding areas and had 7 years of experience prior to that with Walmart as he traversed the ranks starting as an intern while as a pharmacy student. But Dr. Swat's also a member of the NTOCC Pharmacy Advisory Committee, and we started that a few years ago to create some tools and resources for pharmacists and for patients to understand that pharmacists can do more than just fill your prescription. But during our conversation, we reflected on the NTOCC DC Summit where we launched the relay. I mean, what better place to launch a healthcare podcast than DC where they make all the policy and legislation, right? So Dr. Swat and I explored the current promises and pitfalls of AI in healthcare, and we discussed why value-based care is such a hot topic right now and how it is reshaping the healthcare conversation. But of course, we talked about pharmacists' essential role in safe and effective transitions of care. With that being said, welcome again to the Relay, where we talk about the relay race of healthcare. The patient is the baton, and the handoff is everything. So let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Relay, NTOCC's new podcast. I'm so excited. I'm here with Saswat Kabisatpathy, and we are at the NTOCC Summit. How's it going so far, in your opinion, Saswat?
I think it's been awesome. The morning has been so cool. I am noticing some similar themes across the conversations, which I think is good for everybody to kind of hear and then start to ponder and stuff we can kind of take back to our teams and our sites. But it's been really exciting. I think being able to hear from Dr. Ling and CMS and kind of gauging that perspective of where things are and how she presented them as a payer was really exciting for people to kind of get into.
Right. So what was the one thing you took from her presentation?
So I think the thing that was really exciting to me about what she was saying was kind of centered around how important the care plan was and the importance of the care plan and how we need to make sure that that gets to all the important individuals. That resonated with me. And she presented at near the end of her presentation around the guide model. So that's really,
Right.
I was really excited about that because I'll be presenting about the guide model. She has enough slides.
Right.
Then, yeah, I could just stand up and say, hey, anybody have any questions?
Isn't that so cool, though, that she's presenting your work?
Yeah, I was like, this is so cool because I'm a big fan of what I think the guide model has to share. It's in its infancy. It's an 8-year program around dementia care. And I see that we're in our infancy because we just started in July, but we're really looking forward to seeing what the opportunities are and going on a 7-year journey now with these dementia patients.
It's interesting because you would think some of the things that you're working on, we shouldn't still be talking about it. We should be implementing it. You know what I mean? What works?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, part of the challenge is, and one thing that I will say as we're listening to the different speakers, right? Healthcare is so broad and diverse. I come from a community pharmacy background, right? There are folks in there that have a hospital pharmacy
Right.
background, that have a very specific transitions of care background, and it all ties in to healthcare and care of the patient. But we're all looking at it from different angles,
Right.
And so, I agree with you, right? The concept of, why is it taking so long? Well, I think that part of the challenge has been how do we get everybody to the table that's involved?
This
Right.
right
Yeah.
here.
And it's
Right.
these summits and it's these conversations, these meetings, these conferences. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm a conference junkie. People always ask, well, why do you attend and travel to so many conferences? It's because I think one, there's so much that you can learn and glean from other people's experiences that, I mean, even just here, I've been
Right.
like, oh, hey, this is something I need to know or take care of. Or, there was a discussion around technology standards and how that applies to transitions of care standards. And I just thought it was fascinating because as soon as I heard those things and hearing the direction that CMS is going with some
Right.
of those pieces and where other entities are focusing on that, if I'm developing tools and resources and technology for our patients of the future, right? That
Me,
right. We need to make sure that they're meeting those standards, and also the patients of today that we, even if we don't have those standards right now because they're newer to us or we're developing solutions and technologies that, again, how do we all speak the same language, right? So that one system here and one system there. So each of the topics in their own nuances, even hearing from a provider and the provider's perspective of how they're engaging transitions of care and saying one of the biggest challenges is the advanced care plan, care plan and care planning, right? Hearing those nuances to say, okay, we're getting ready to take on a very difficult patient population. We're going to be going through our own unique journeys of transitions of care with these patients, right? I would love to sit here and believe that all of our patients will not have to go through a transition of care. They'll be safe at home, but that's not the reality.
I took from that what she said, and that's so true. Like even in everything, like she was like, don't assume that this patient's going to be okay at home by themselves. They may have
Right.
been okay at one point and one time, but don't assume, because when you assume, the patient suffers.
Yeah.
Like I caught that, and I was just like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like,
And then they mentioned
it's risky. That's
yeah.
what she said. It's
Yeah.
risky to assume.
They mentioned in one of the other sessions, I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. I have so many notes and I left my notebook in the
What'd you
other
do that
section.
for?
I
No,
know,
I'm
I
kidding,
know. But it was fascinating, right, that they were saying that these patients, there's an increase in the number of patients that do not have a caregiver.
Yes.
And so that patient population, it goes back to that point you were
Right.
just making of, well, if we assume that, oh, they've just been living alone and they're okay, well, has anyone recently given
Checked on them?
yeah, any wellness checks on them, or even just, how's their safety at home?
I mean, that was my
You know.
experience. Like, 'cause I'm not clinical. I've been working with NTOCC for 15 years. I catch on to things. But, when my dad, he was in pretty bad shape, and they let him live by himself, and because he wasn't taking care of his diabetes. I'm very honest about it. He was an opioid addict, one of the first. Like in the 90s, he had back surgery, and then they sent him the opioids, and then they took him off of them, and the only thing he could focus on was buying them instead of taking care of his diabetes.
Right.
And so they were like, okay, well, he'll be okay at home. He's living by himself. They found him. He flooded his apartment, almost drowned in it. Like they're not okay. You may think that, but when they're home by themselves, there's nobody to know whether they're flooding their apartment or until you find them like that.
Right.
And then it's too late. And so we had to put him in the nursing home because it was just, he wouldn't take care of himself.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So that's an example to me of how do we start to look at our systems and say, obviously from your perspective, this isn't working. Right. So how do we start to say, okay, well, this isn't working, but what are the solutions in place? And I think the second presentation really highlighted this, the concept of, and the providers that I work with and the team that I work with, we emphasize this all the time. We got to break down the silos. We are working in silos. We've got to stop that.
Why do you think people are so resistant against that? Is it just because they're just guarded, or like why?
I think part of it has just been the fact that we are a product of the systems that we're in a lot of time. We're used to, this is kind of how it's been done. This is what we're doing. This is how we operate. Again, I mean, just giving you a pharmacy perspective, for example, right? It's taken us a really long time to get into the ecosystem of discussion of what are the things that we can do. Think about it. You've got a community pharmacy on almost every corner of your neighborhoods and across the U.S. Whether it's a Walgreens, whether it's a CVS, whether it's a Walmart, or whether it's your independent community pharmacy, they exist. But it's the concept of what does that really mean to patients that leverage those, and whether it's a retail community pharmacy setting or an independent community pharmacy setting, right? It's the pharmacist and that skill set of what they've been trained and been able to do. Now, you can look at the support or lack of support in some circumstances in the ecosystem and blame some of those things. But I think at the end of the day, it's if we're going to have transformational change happen, it's going to take transformational leadership to drive that. And so you have to say, what are we doing with each one of these opportunities? And a big
Where's the
theme,
missed opportunity?
Yeah, or missed opportunities. And a big thing that I will say, it's been a theme all morning is AI. How AI is going to come into play, how AI is going to work.
And we have to, the thing about, I keep trying to remind everyone, especially in healthcare, with AI, your input's what matters the most, because without the correct input, your output is trash.
Dr. Ling and many others have made the point that AI, while it's great, it can do a lot of things.
Damage too.
Yeah, you have to be careful because it still should be looked at as a tool.
Yes, it should not be just automated, like, you just take what it says for word. Like everything, like social media, all of that, the algorithm, that stuff should not be taken at its face value.
And I think the other thing too, at the end of the day, is, while there may be certain things that AI can solve, I genuinely believe in the human connection.
Human connection, yes.
I think that patient care should be delivered effectively, but it's going to be delivered effectively locally. And what do I mean by that? So if, for example, I am, again, not to knock on any companies or systems or anything that exists, but if I'm a call center and I'm a call center person that is providing some level of care, I'm in Minnesota and I'm talking to a patient in Arizona. do I really know what are the resources that exist in Tucson, Arizona for that patient? Maybe, the food insecurities that they're experiencing or the transportation issues
No,
that
you
they have,
don't.
right? No, I don't,
Because you're
right?
not in the
I'm not
community.
in the community, but I can tell you the local independent community pharmacies there do. Some of the local retail
Right.
pharmacies may know that. And so it's important to me, and a lot of the models that will be shared and we'll be talking about. That's always my question to everybody is, that's a great model, but how are you delivering care locally?
Right.
And so one of the things today during the session this afternoon on the panel discussion is with the guide model and what we're doing, there's a lot of different ways to deliver care. And you got to think about it from the different aspects. So my perspective is coming from a community pharmacy perspective. There are people in that room that are working with big hospital systems
Yeah.
or part of big hospital systems, which
Totally
have their
different
right. They have their
ecosystem.
own challenges, their own opportunities. But it goes back to what we were saying about why these meetings are so important is I now have an opportunity to learn what their challenges are. They have an opportunity to learn what our challenges are. How do we come together to solve those problems? Because again, if we're continuing to work in our silos and we
Yes,
continue to
nothing
run into,
changes.
confrontation or challenges that exist, at the end of the day, who's going to be damaged by this?
The
It's the
patient.
patient. I really look forward to these discussions and in these meetings and these sessions. I think the summit is going to be. I mean, we've only had 3 sessions so far, and I've just taken a slew of notes of like, oh, this is really important, or oh, I didn't know this, right? And so, I kind of feel bad for those that were thinking about coming and weren't
Yeah, and they
sure. Like,
didn't. Yeah.
yeah, hopefully next go around, you guys can, make the trip, make
It's
the
worth
effort.
it. Like, Sherry and I put a lot of work into this, and we
Yes.
want attendees to get the most information that they
Mm-hmm.
can in such a little amount of time.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, it's already 12:16. I mean, we only have 4 hours and 15 minutes to go. We have to jam it all in there. So we jam it all in there. We try
Yeah.
to get the best speakers, just so that you learn in one trip. But that way, everyone's like, what's the value of coming? And because it's not just, oh, I came and I learned one thing. When you come to an NTOCC Summit, you learn about 8 things
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
didn't know, like, 8 different things.
And these
they're
are
important things.
these are, I mean, all of the folks that are in the room, I mean, they're experts in their fields and their experiences, and they're bringing different perspectives. And I think that's really how you make not only just healthcare better, but you make healthcare teams stronger. It's why I've been a big advocate of collaborative care. It's why we've been working in collaborative care models for years. Very fortunate and privileged to have those different experiences and opportunities. But it's really allowed me when I go to a different project or a different practice setting or a different meeting where I'm pulling from those
Right.
different experiences to say, okay, well, I've heard that folks have been doing it in
This way. Yeah.
this setting this way. I wonder if this would help you, and just gathering that insight. So.
I mean, that's what we do. We pass the baton, even with information, not just patients, but
Yeah, I
we
love
pass.
I love
Do you love
that
it? Do you love
workshop that you guys are doing. For those of you guys that are tuning in at this summit, after each session, you have to provide a word of wisdom or something that you learned from that session. So you can't just be on your phone dealing with
Right.
the issues and work at home and everything. You got to be paying attention to the sessions, because not only do you pass that to the next person, but the person then has to recite what was presented and then present a new one. But then by the
But that's
time
what you have to do in your everyday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what you have to do.
But here's the best part. It's being recited time and time again, because by the time it gets to the 7th or 8th person, you're reiterating the topics of what was learned. So like I said, I don't have my notes in front of me, but we've done this exercise 3 times now, and I can recall exactly what were the key talking points
Right.
from the session that the first 3 individuals who I'm the next person that gets the baton. So I
Because
get
we
to
were
share
kind of
my
worried, was
insight.
like, are they going to think it's cheesy, or because I was like, I just think this is such a good idea because so many people learn differently. There's literally 3 different types of
Yeah.
learning. I have to be doing something, and when you're doing something, and then you have that repetitive,
Yeah.
that you learn better than just somebody speaking
Yeah.
to you in a monotone voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
but
going to tell you right now, it is uber cheesy, but I love it. I love it because I saw the batons and I was like, what are we doing here? And then you guys explained. I was like, oh, okay. And then we started kind of going through. It's been pretty fun talking to each of the folks at the table. Again, different perspectives, right? This person's in this setting and that setting, and what are their takeaways?
Right.
And it's been really cool, even in just like a quick 10-minute dialogue, to see, oh yeah, that's what I thought was important here too. Or, oh, hey, I also thought this was important. So you're getting different perspectives on what were the key takeaways that they thought. No, I hadn't really thought about that this way.
Right.
So
And you know what? Sometimes somebody might have an idea and they don't, if they're in their setting and they don't speak up,
yeah,
but when they hear that somebody else thinks the same way, then
yes,
they might go back to their setting and speak up because it's
absolutely,
not,
yeah,
some people don't have faith in themselves
right.
enough to speak up, but now they
Right.
might go and they might change the whole system.
Right.
Like
And like you said, you just never know. And I think, with all of us coming with the concept of how are we going to improve the transitions of care systems or processes or our communities to make that a better aspect of what we're doing when we get back. I think, at the end of the day, if if there's one idea, right, one concept, something that helps one patient, right, doesn't that make this
Right.
worthwhile?
Yeah.
And I think that's again, right, as a big financial and goals and KPIs kind of guy, like you can always get into the nuances of that, but it's the same thing I tell my team and my patients. If we can do something to just help make your life better, make your quality of life better, improve this process to make it better.
So
So
we've
that,
been successful.
yeah, you don't have adverse events or you don't get rehospitalized. Isn't that the goal
Yeah.
at the end of the day?
Well, because I always say, most people don't see a good transition
Yeah.
because you only pay attention when it's a bad transition.
Yeah.
Like you don't even pay attention when nothing goes wrong. It's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's when things go completely wrong that you're seeing this was a bad transition.
Yeah, what happened? What were the
Exactly.
what were the
Breakdowns.
breakdowns? Where did things kind of fall apart? How do we reevaluate our systems? But at the same time, right, it goes back to, well, if you've been doing something the same way for 10 years, right, and you're a system that this is just how we've always done it, and you don't have a fresh perspective, or maybe you're just not aware of the things that are being done. And I think about it, right? Think about all the different communities that exist in our
Right.
country, right? We have people here that are from big hospital systems. We have individuals here that are from small towns, right? So transitions of care is
It's
always going to
everywhere.
look different from every different community,
Exactly.
but transitions of care exists everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So what are the commonalities that we can all find of how to do, right, the best practices that exist in transitions of care? And
You
then,
don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
It's already being done.
no, you don't. But what I would say is, okay, if you have some foundation to build off of, right, now how do you get creative from that, right? Maybe you need to implement this type of care team member, or maybe you need to bring in this type of resource, or, maybe you need to think about your workflow in a different way, right?
Right.
And that's why I love these type of opportunities, is because it just gets you to think
Outside
about,
the box.
maybe I should see if that would work for us, or would this work better? And,
I
to
think
not
people
be
are just
afraid.
so afraid. Like they're so afraid that that their system, if they change things up, that it won't work.
But here's the beauty of it, right? It's nothing. Nothing has to be permanent.
True.
Right? If something doesn't work, you can always
Go
go
back.
back to the previous system, right? And it's funny because in the guide model that we're working in, and we're doing some really crazy stuff in this model, like exciting crazy, not like
Right.
crazy, yeah.
Not like it will.
Although some people might say you guys are crazy, but we're doing some really unique things, right? We're integrating community pharmacies, independent community pharmacies across. We're in 12 states now.
Wow.
And we are getting ready to see our first patients very soon, right? And so this is a model where there are things that have been done in this aspect conceptually before, but never to this level of care where we're bringing patient care navigators as pharmacy team members that are
Right. Wow.
supporting our medical practice to now see these patients. So how do we effectively manage seeing these patients? When transitions of care occur, how do we effectively manage those? But the beauty of this is, as we're working through it, we have team members that are local. These patients are being seen locally
Right.
by their community pharmacies. So they're not just there to pick up meds or receive meds via delivery. They're kind of having this opportunity to have an elevated level of care to
That's
say, hey,
interesting.
we're
Yeah,
not
for
just a
sure.
pharmacy, we're your dementia care coordination hub.
Right.
You know.
With that, look, I've got some questions
Yeah.
that I want to get to. The conversation is so great though because we're having such a good day.
Well,
here at
I'm a
Summit.
talker, so.
Oh, me too. Everyone knows me too. I'm a talker. I don't ever show. I could talk to a tree.
Of course.
So, from your perspective at Avant Pharmacy and Wellness,
Yeah.
let's see. So, how do you see independent pharmacy, like community-based providers, playing a pivotal role in improving care transitions across the broader healthcare ecosystem. I know we touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah.
let's get your.
I think, so of course, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina with Avant Pharmacy and Wellness. So shout out to my team back there.
Yay.
It's doing a lot of cool stuff. But when we look at, transitions of care and the different opportunities that exist with that, part of it to me and something I'm kind of looking for at the summit here is how do we improve the communication process in transitions of care for people to know when the transitions are happening. The systems, the technology, is there an AI solution that exists? Because I do feel like pharmacy is well primed to be in that position. So, because think about it, right? These patients, when they transition, maybe from a hospital to back to their home or to a facility, whatever, more often than not, there is some coordination that is happening with the medication aspect with pharmacies. We're probably pharmacies that are taking care of these patients before they enter a transition, and we're probably the pharmacies that are going to be taking care of them after. So
you're going to talk to them and see them more than the discharge,
but it's
whatever.
it's the in between with that transition where we're lost on that, because unless a patient, like a family member, tells us, oh, Mrs. Smith, we just, mom just got admitted to the hospital and blah blah blah, right? But even while they're in the hospital, we don't need to know all the details of what's happening in the hospital. But if they're getting ready to be discharged, can we get pinged somehow so we can help coordinate care?
Yeah.
Can we get pinged so that we can also help ensure that that patient not only gets the appropriate med updates and med reviews in our systems and in their systems, but how do we coordinate with primary care? Because we're already working with primary care because of their maintenance meds and everything else. So I've always felt like independent community pharmacies are a missing link in a variety of healthcare sectors, transitions of care being one of them. And a lot of people, again, it's the perception of, well, they're too busy just filling prescriptions and this and that. And honestly, yes, we are busy doing that, but that is where community pharmacies, their mindsets are shifting to. We're not a product-based entity anymore. We're a service-based entity.
We can fill some gaps.
We can fill some gaps. When we talk about like the shortages that exist, I actually read an article just yesterday or day before where there's a huge primary care doctor shortage in South Carolina. So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I grew up in South Carolina. Right. So my home state, we've got this primary care shortage. Well, they're looking to bring additional PAs and nurse practitioners and stuff, and adding more practitioner resources, which is great. I think that's needed. But at the same time, how can you leverage your ecosystem of these actual community pharmacies that have trained healthcare providers, whether they're recognized by, CMS or not. At the end of the day, we all know, everybody knows that pharmacists are healthcare providers. And while I know people are big on provider status and things like that, in the current ecosystem, because if and when that happens, great. But in the current climate, we're not there. But how can we leverage what we can do to make that better? So I really do see that there are tremendous opportunities for community pharmacies to really engage in that. But community pharmacies also have to kind of really engage their providers and their support systems that exist for these patients to say, these are all the things that we can also do for you. So it becomes we've got to continue to break down the silos.
Yeah, and we're creating tools and resources on the work group.
Absolutely.
So I've got another question for you. So can you share how Avant collaborates with hospitals, health systems, or community clinics to, ensure there's better outcomes during the post-discharge period, especially like for a high risk, like an underserved patients? Like that's a...
Yeah. So great question. Avant Pharmacy and Wellness. So we have 4 pharmacy locations. I want to get this right because I know we've added some new practice sites. So I'm like, I think we're at 4, right? Pharmacy locations. So we have one flagship location, which is really kind of its independent community pharmacy setting, but it's right next to our what we consider our sister clinic or our primary care practice, okay? That we work with. And then we have 3 other pharmacy locations that are essentially embedded within the primary care space. Okay. So as we are getting patients that we're caring for from the primary care side that is either working or have identified patients that are going through a transitions of care, we have within our space, we've been very fortunate to be in this model for nearly 10 years now, where we have our clinical pharmacists we have some that are embedded within the medical practice.
Mhm.
So they work hand in hand with the provider.
Wow, nice.
So we have some that work directly with the practice and work with the providers and the care teams in the primary care setting. And then we have our clinical community pharmacists that are focusing on the dispensing of the meds and the workflow and making sure that, we're checking with what needs to be done with the practice on each of these patients. And so there's a really good synergy that we have there. So when we look at transitions of care and the follow-up that needs to be done, the providers are able to leverage those clinical pharmacists to say, hey, can you help facilitate these medrec questions that need to be done? How do we get the lists and make sure that things are updated prior to their hospital visit? What's happened during the hospital visit? What were they given post-discharge? They can help do a lot of the reconciliation that needs to be done that, again, pharmacy teams are the experts to doing that. So it's not left to, a case manager or a nurse practitioner or somebody who, yes, they have the familiarity with it, but you'd really want to loop in a pharmacist to be able to do that. So they have
Oh, you
that
might
as
as
a
well
resource.
just use the pharmacist.
Yeah, so they have a resource on site. So we're kind of have that unique perspective, but the concept becomes we just happen to be right next to or embedded within that pharmacy practice. Doesn't mean that other primary care docs and other healthcare systems can't leverage a similar system in place,
setup,
right?
yeah.
So the idea becomes we're already doing this. We would love to be able to continue to showcase and emulate how we do that so that other people can, kind of learn and emulate a similar workflow. So
This is where a case where copycats are good.
yeah. And so in where we are in Charlotte, we have a unique mix where we do have a relatively affluent patient population in some parts of where our pharmacies and medical practices are located. But then we also are in settings where we have a very high Hispanic speaking patient population, or we have a lot of refugees that have kind of come into the community. And so we are able to kind of really support those patients in a very similar manner. It doesn't matter from which aspect of transitions of care you're coming from, but we do leverage our resources. We have a lot of individuals on staff that are from different backgrounds. I tell everybody, if you want to see the most diverse team on the face of the planet, come to Avant Pharmacy. We have folks from all different walks of life.
Because somebody
beliefs.
walks in and you don't have to wait to get a translator, or don't have to try to figure out how to use Google Translate and it not work, and then the mass community. That's what I mean by input equals output. Like sometimes those translations just don't work.
Yeah, we have technicians who are Hispanic. Our CEO and our boss is from Kenya. I'm from India, so we all have these different perspectives and different understandings of and things like that, and are attuned to that in a lot of ways. And our teams, right? Our pharmacy teams are very adept at being able to leverage the resources that we try to provide and the education we try to provide to help these patients in what we do. And our teams are trained in what resources exist to help those patients in the community and making sure that we manage them in that way. So it's fortunate when you have that level of differences of background to say, oh yeah, I went to church with somebody that worked with so and so and so, and I worked at this community service event and they have these resources. And just very fortunate. I tell people I've got a rock star team. I mean, we've got just amazing people that work in our pharmacy and are within the medical practice sites, and they just do some really cool work with patients, and especially as they're going through those different transitions of care experiences.
That's awesome. I hope that it to see where you're at in the next few years, that it replicates all over the place.
Yeah, it's not.
The more we talk about it, the more people will be like, oh, well, let's try that.
It's nonstop. We're always continuing to see how we can grow and develop.
So let's move on a little bit because I want you to get back in there and take some more notes. What are your thoughts on integrating technologies like AI with pharmacy and wellness models to better address the real world needs of patients and caregivers during transitions of care? Not like the ones that are on paper.
Sure.
The actual real world needs.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think so. Again, my philosophy on AI, I think is really being reiterated by what's being said here at the summit. And I think that we are going to see a revolution occur with what AI can do in healthcare. And I do believe that it's going to be for the better. And I think that folks need to begin to embrace it rather than resist the change, because I think the reality of it is that there are so many different entities that are engaging with it, and there are significant benefits. So I would rather be at the table and having discussions around how we can leverage it successfully and how we can implement it successfully versus it being kind of brought forth upon us.
Like, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. And then, well, your medical practitioners are like,
Right.
you don't have a choice. This is what we're
and
using.
here's the thing about that, like, if you, I know there's a lot of pushback on it, but we have to have people using it to, it's going to have some bad things to it. You have to help us spit out the bad.
Yeah.
So, and so that those things don't happen. And if just because you don't want to be involved in it because you don't agree with it, like, it's still going to be across the board.
It's no different than any technological transition that occurs. I think just what's unique here is the speed at which it's happening and is going to happen. And what I mean by that is, think about it, right? 30 years ago, you had many doctors that were still doing paper charts. Right. Now, CMS and other payers are like, look, we need you guys to get to electronic medical records for this, that, and whatever reason. So people are having to switch to actual like electronic health records and all the problems that occurred. And then, so this is not a new problem that healthcare has faced. Technology has continued to evolve in healthcare, and adoption of it has continued to be just an inherent struggle to the way that people care. What I think we all have to remember is, at the end of the day, patients still need the human touch.
They sure do.
They still need that connectivity. AI can replicate some aspects of that, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be that need for one-to-one connection with individuals. And so I think if we continue to leverage it as a tool, and really, in my opinion, having AI allow us as practitioners and as, pharmacy technicians or nurses or patient care navigators actually practice at the top of our license. So what do I mean by that? If AI can do a lot of the research and the technical work that we need it to do successfully, and that allows me to translate information faster to where now I can see more patients because the information is being delivered to me in a safe, efficacious manner.
Yeah.
That's huge for me. I go from, oh my God, I had 50,000 notes I had to make and I had to write all of these things, to AI is taking my information, doing that for me. Yeah. And now I can
focus on,
I can now focus on the patient more. So again, I'm a big advocate of AI from the perspective of, if it's allowing us to take better care of patients and to see more patients because we're doing less of the the busy work that
you're
exists.
doing less of the paper pushing.
Yeah, things of that nature, the research, this and that.
Well, but here's the thing about that, though. You said research, because the human part of it is it's going to spit this stuff out, and it's not always going to be accurate. You still have to go over the information and verify and make sure that it's correct.
And I think that's the thing where we're thinking about it in today's world. So what I would say to that, Val, is AI is still in its infancy.
Yeah.
It's no different than when you have a new computer system that is able to do X, Y, and Z, but it breaks down after 30 different systems of use, right? Iteration after iteration, AI will get better and better.
It's kind of like your teenager when you... when you're teaching them, and then they get better and better. Yeah, but it learns. The more it learns, the more it retains.
I think we're at a position now where, yes, people are going to be pushing a lot of the AI components, but this is where us as healthcare providers and practitioners, right? It's on us to make sure that we continue to evaluate the safety and efficacy of these tools and resources so that our patients aren't harmed. Now, is it going to be 100% all the time? No, but at the same time, now they're humans.
No,
right? And I look at it from there was an example that was given around pharmacy drug interactions. I can tell you right now, I've been in practice for 10 years, and while I'm not necessarily in the pharmacy as much, I do have that pharmacy knowledge here. I don't know every drug interaction, and there are new drugs that are coming out every day. So if that now becomes a resource where I can look things up, I can understand what type of drug it is, how it works, what the mechanism of action is, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see where the interaction is occurring, and that does make sense to me, and I can be well informed and better evaluate whether or not this is harmful to my patient, right? That's different, right? But it's now a tool, because that already exists, right? That's something that actually exists. I have a patient interaction checker on my phone, right? I mean, it's not AI driven, or maybe
Right.
it is, and I don't know, but
Right.
but I have that tool right now. So now it becomes, how do we now implement that in an AI world that becomes a resource? And so I am an optimist of AI, but I'm a cautious optimist of AI, because here's the other thing I'll tell you, Val, that I think in healthcare, you have to look at, read the room.
Hmm?
There are companies that are laying people off left and right.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that that will happen directly in healthcare, but I can see a lot of situations where you are leveraging AI to replace more, how can I put this, kind of assembly line type things. And so I genuinely believe, especially in the community pharmacy setting, I look at it as a good thing, because if I can not have to worry about filling and dispensing a med, that AI can automate and
Hmm.
leverage that, there's a whole workforce here that I can now retrain to help focus on effective transitions of care,
Right.
right? That can
Right.
actually help do more clinically driven things versus process driven things.
Yeah.
That now they can leverage AI to support these technicians or these patient care navigators or nurses or whoever. There's more opportunities for folks that are healthcare trained to now actually be more involved in healthcare than just sticking a label on a bottle. The
Right.
things that people think that we just do. And again, not to minimize my own profession, but when I've been in it for so long, and I look at where I started in retail community pharmacy, and I remember kind of banging the drum back then about, central fill can take care of a lot of these fills that we're doing. Why do I have to fill them? I just see the automation that can exist so that I can spend more time with that patient that just left the hospital that's coming to the pharmacy, because I have the time. I'm not worried about filling a bunch of prescriptions versus caring for the patient, because I have a whole trusted AI ecosystem that
Right.
can do that. So that's where I feel like things are
Well,
going to.
ecosystem. We talked about that, but I want to touch on, so the healthcare system continues its shift towards value-based care. How do you see pharmacy, and especially programs like Guide, playing a strategic role in supporting smoother, safer transitions between care settings?
So I am really excited about value-based care in healthcare. I think that the fee-for-service model had its place for however long that it
Right?
did. But I think the reality of it is that we've got to be able to evaluate systems and say, are we meeting outcomes effectively, right? And not just effectively from a clinical standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. And then how do we get to where we are seeing patients not just as a, hey, I have to see 30 patients and I'm getting paid X amount of dollars that covers X, Y, and Z costs. So from a business
Exactly.
perspective, but now, hey, I'm practice A and I'm doing a really good job of taking care of these patients. And that becomes incentivized by payers and plans, because I am investing in technology and support staff and AI and teams so that I can take really good care of these patients. Whereas some folks may not have adapted, those patients may not be getting the same, level of quality of care.
But that
And so,
person is getting paid the same.
right, exactly, in a fee-for-service model, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's really exciting. What I'm really excited about Guide is offering a bundled payment model. So each month, when we see the patients, depending on the level of complexity that CMS identifies that dementia patient, there's a dollar amount that's associated for care with that patient each month. So what we've designed in our model is a system of where there are dollars that are allocated to the medical practice, there are dollars that are allocated to the pharmacy teams and their patient care navigators, and there are dollars allocated to other potential community resources that may exist that we need for that patient. And so our goal is to optimize the dollars for that patient, right? Every week, every month, every year, right? It's a per member per month dollar, but when we start to evaluate what we're doing for that patient, if we can mitigate the costs around that patient, because a dementia care patient, I think I read, costs CMS $58,000 a year. So if we can,
And some of them, half of them aren't even, they're not getting the care they deserve.
right. So if now we can say, okay, we're working in a model that gives us a PMPM, and we now start to cut those costs in half or a third or whatever, right? Any decrease, right,
Sure.
is a value to Medicare as a payer,
Right,
right?
of course.
But then right, decreasing cost is one thing.
But increase in care.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
And that's what I'm excited, because Guide has those requirements of, you need to connect with these patients this amount of times. These are the care delivery systems that you need to implement. This is the support you need to provide. So it's not just, hey, here's a dollar amount, go have at it. It's created a structure with which they're saying, we want you to do this, and this is how much we're going to pay. And so I think it's forcing providers to think outside the box with their communities on different resources. So I'm optimistic about it. We're in, like I've said in the beginning, we're in our infancy with this, but I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
Well, we are going to let you get out of here, but we will be talking to you more in the next coming months because Sherry, first of all, she loves the guide program. She loves that.
It's very exciting.
So thank you, Saswat, for talking with me today on my flagship show for the relay. We're excited about that too. So.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm excited that you guys got this started. And I know as part of the social media committee, I've been kind of pushing to kind of see how we can get this happen. I know. And so I'm really excited about what we're doing.
Well, I appreciate that too. But Saswat, did you want to give any information like your email?
Folks, any questions, they're welcome to reach out to me at swat@avantpharmacy.com. That's probably the email that I check the most. I'm also on LinkedIn if folks want to connect that way and on the socials.
That's all for us right now. We'll
awesome.
Talk to you again in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks, Val.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
So thanks for listening to this episode of The Relay with Dr. Swat, recorded live at the NTOCC Summit. Dr. Swat's insights on innovation and transitions of care show us just how much the landscape is changing and why getting it right matters for every patient. So be sure to join us next time when we'll be sitting down with Sam Stolpe, an NTOCC board member and a sponsor with Johnson & Johnson. We'll dive into the role of pharma and value-based care and AI, again, that's going to be a big topic on our show, and how they can support smoother, safer care transitions. So until then, I'm Val Emmons, and this is The Relay. See you in the next episode.